guys. I am here with Joe Lyons and Sheila Pogue from our team, who's kind of a dealer consultant and does a lot of dealer strategies. And then Joe Lyons has been on all sides of the equation with cars.com, selling into dealers, representing manufacturers and dealers' interests, working with Shift, and now it is anchored into the dealership side, helping them roll out digital marketing strategies. Thank you for saying yes and joining. Thank you for coming to the Dealer Profitability Summit.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. That was a great couple of days. I learned a lot. There is a ton of smart people in that room. And I try to be like the third dumbest person. That's usually my goal. But I want everyone else to be smarter than me. So that's where I try to flock to in those situations. So
yeah.
Who was number one and number two? Quick.
Dumbest?
Yeah, tell us.
I don't want to know names.
Is it me and Andrew?
Don't be the dumbest.
I didn't say that. Yeah. I didn't say that.
No, I've done I think my whole career, it's been like the same thing about just like trying to get people together. Like we organized it and got people from Meta and TikTok and Pinterest and all these like really smart specialists and really, forward thinking dealers to get up and present. And I just try to look smart by proximity and stand near them while they're sounding smart. So I'm glad you had a good experience. I'd love to hear like later what we could do that we didn't do, or
sure
things that we should take away, or anything. Cause yeah, it was a great event for us too, just to be able to have, a not super pitchy dealer conference. It was a Dealer Profitability Summit. But back to you. So you've sold to dealers with cars.com, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Then you kind of moved into a new seat, which is also a good formative experience, I imagine, with Shift, which is really getting, like in my observation, it's like a good boot camp for people to level up their skill set. And then now you're running your own stack inside of the stores. Is there something that you felt like you knew along each step of this journey that turned out to be something different?
I think that, let me go back a little bit, because I did start off like late 2009 in sales. And I think that sort of got lost a little bit when I got back on the retail side, because I was met with, well, you don't understand because you didn't sell cars. I'm like, well, wait a second. And even with, I think my time at Shift, you get put in that box of like, you're part of the OEM, and a lot of OEM people haven't really worked inside of a car dealership. Right. And so when you're talking to dealers about lead handling process, or what it's like to be on the floor and then receive a lead, but you also have someone walking through the door, they're like, well, you don't understand. And I'm like, well, wait a second, I actually do. Right. And to me, when I decided, well, Shift, I didn't really want to travel that much anymore. And I met the GM here, Greg, and he was a phenomenal person, and got back into retail. It was great because I can take that knowledge, right, and really apply it. The things that I had to catch up on were like things like, how does AI sales fit into our process now, which I didn't have to do 10 years ago, right? CDPs, which we've talked about, but until you have that hands-on experience inside a store, that's really where the value's at.
Yeah, it's easy to sit on the opposite side of the table and say, well, no, here's exactly how you need to do it. And you guys are doing a poor job of managing leads or whatever.
Right.
Versus rolling up your sleeves and actually, working that month to pull it across the finish line. So with, of course, my phone is ringing now. Working on the dealership side, you had mentioned now that you're building out, a tech stack and getting familiar with like the nuances with leveraging AI and stuff like that, and implementing a CDP. Have you found success in activating on audiences with it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll take the AI part first. we're actually stepping back in terms of AI follow-up, right? In our lead handling process. I looked at it from a consumer standpoint. I think it was like I was reading a mystery shop or something. And I'm like, man, there's just a lot of cooks in this kitchen. Like you're as a consumer, it's the pro is they're gonna get hit by someone, so they're getting followed up with. The con is they're like, who do I talk to? Because day one I have the AI assistant reaching out, I have a BDC representative reaching out, and then day three I have a manager reaching out, and then all of a sudden there's like 3 or 4 people involved, and it just gets so confusing. We've really shifted our AI into a long-term follow-up situation. So we can concentrate on more like days 1 through 7. And the CDP aspect to me, I know I think you've had guests on some of your podcasts that are, I don't want to say anti-CDP. They're just like, yeah, I think it's sort of blown out of proportion. And I sort of hear it in your voice where you guys are like, well, why do you say that? I feel like you want to go a little bit deeper into that, but respectfully you don't. And I love it, but it's entertaining. But we try to be as targeted as we can with our CDPs from a marketing standpoint, where we're building those audience lists, we're plugging them in to, email, text campaigns. I don't want to look at a CDP like that. We do use it, but really it's for a lot of our paid search. We're going after people that do have that lease coming up, maybe are in an equity position. And the CDPs we're tapping into more of the 360-degree view of our first party data, which we look at as assets, right? Not just leads, from a life cycle marketing standpoint, versus maybe an equity mining tool, which is valuable, but is like algorithm based on like, call these 10 people, you probably can put them in a new car and keep their payment the same. So from a business standpoint, I think my opinion is a CDP is valuable. And I think the dealers that are using it for that purpose, to me, are ahead of the game. So
what do you think is the most insightful thing that people don't see that haven't been on all of the facets that you have been? Like something that that no one else is paying attention to?
Well, are we talking just CDPs? Or are we talking just?
I'm talking about digital. I'm talking about digital or automotive retail. You've got a lot of insights to share. Something that someone that might be more siloed in one or the other might not have a holistic view of that you do.
Yeah, I think the thing right now for me is how are we the most efficient that we can be. And so what I love about being back on this side, and what I love about leadership here, is they're like, hey, like, we trust what you do, be creative. They don't try to box me in and say, don't do that or whatever. We look at everything from an efficiency standpoint. And I think if you're not looking into that right now, I think you might be behind people that are. What I mean by that, and I don't want to turn this into an AI discussion just fully, but it's hard to not talk about what's going on without AI. And I do use AI from an efficiency standpoint for me and my team, right? And once again, the people who I think are doing that are going to pass the people that aren't, that are just sort of like, AI, no way. And so we're building things, obviously the CDP uses AI to look at our database and say like, hey, we need to be looking at these people. We need to be targeting these people. Obviously Full Path was just acquired by Cox. I'm interested to see how that might change VIN solutions, which we do use in store at both our BMW and Toyota store. I hope that's for the better. Full Path was creating their own sort of CRM. So I hope they take those principles and just kind of bring it over to the VIN solution side. But we also use AI right now in terms of blending the digital side into the showroom side. And what I mean by that is, I think one of the biggest issues dealers have is that use a BDC is that people talk to a BDC rep for 3 days and have to walk in the store and then repeat that story to someone brand new. And I think for me, that would be super frustrating. So we plug in all that conversation, it kicks out notes, and it's got very detailed notes where all they have to do is sit down, pull up the customer's profile, read the notes. It has everything. And then once again, that's one of the ways we're blending that digital into in-store process.
And how has it been like trickled down to the staff where they know to check that? And I imagine it's not perfect yet, but it's better than it used to be, is the direction it's going. And for them to be equipped, like to have ammunition, but when that customer walks in, to understand their situation, you know, the vehicle they're trading in, the car that they were interested in. Do you feel like that's getting picked up by the sales team and they're able to take a look before the customer gets there?
For us, yeah, we're not perfect. I mean, that's why I started chuckling. I mean, it's hard. Any change inside a dealership is rough. It starts at the top, right? If leadership isn't staying on top of people, it's just not going to go anywhere. I'll give you an example of what we don't do well, which frustrates me. I created like this app essentially that's browser based that we can put in people who have appointments and they are confirmed. It kicks it back to the porters, and what they're supposed to do is have that screen up. They pull up the car, they make sure it's washed. If it's a used car, no lights are on, right? And then they're supposed to hang VIP test drive for Joe or whatever. That's the perfect world. But the funny part is no one turns on the TV, so the browser's up. so there is that disconnect. And I felt the disconnect coming with the appointments when someone walks in, to your point, right? And so what I did was I went out and got a TV and set up an appointment board. So when people walk in, they can be like, oh yeah, there I am. And then it triggers the sales consultant to know, hey, pull up. And then we've just been on them about, make sure you're asking them, have you talked to someone at the store? The basics, the 101s, right? Oh yeah, I've been talking to insert BDC agent name. And they're like, oh, okay, so now I can look at the notes, right? Because we'll update the notes every like 2 or 3 days. And they can look inside and read those notes. So we've gotten a lot better at that. And but it's still a work in progress.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so walk me through that. When the salesperson finds out that they've been communicating with the BDC representative, do they get onto the CRM to look at that conversation? Are they able to use the CDP for that? Or is
yeah, that's for them. It's going to be all CRM. That's just the lifeblood of the floor. They're not going to tap into the CDP. I do think to your point, we're probably missing some of that where they can really be following up with their customers on downtime. So I still feel like CDPs for me and for my team is still a learning. We're in a learning process phase. We probably are doing a good job. I just feel like we're not doing a good job, right? Which
the healthy mindset.
What we do, right? It's the self-deprecation of the car business, but I think one day we'll get there where everyone is comfortable and we can say, hey, go in and do this, this, and this. But we're just not there yet.
Yeah. And I've heard it said before. It's like, I think it was like Alex Hormozy or somebody who had like a good definition of like successful people. It's like, they feel like they should be doing better. They deserve better, but they're not doing a good enough job. And like that continual strain you put on your own self helps kind of continue to push you forward and
makes you a high performer though, for sure.
Yeah. And
I tell myself I want to be fired every day. That's how I improve, you know. So I'm like today's the day they're just gonna
Just
make
straight anxiety.
Oh, he's thinking
Yeah.
this guy. Mike, what is wrong with so
Speaking of
Yeah.
anxiety, I'm going to
Sure.
pivot a little bit and ask you. Me and you had been chatting about the FTC compliance rollout that you kind of spearheaded. How did that go, and what do you wish had been different?
For me, it was simple. It was just, get the doc fee is the only thing that is a non-optional for us, right? So it was just get the doc fee up as quick as possible. But we did have the only pressure cooker was, I think we did have people at the very, very top looking at it, because when you have 14 stores and all of a sudden you're calculating, how many VDPs you have that can be dinged, I'd probably be in the
Times
sweat lodge.
$53,000.
Yeah. I'd probably be in the sweat lodge myself. BMW, because of the digital retailing tool, I'm not going to bore everyone with these details, but it was a lot easier to throw that up, and Toyota took a hot minute, but we got it up. Actually, we were one of the first ones. So leadership was happy. They're like, oh, great job. I was like, oh yeah. It seemed like a simple ask to me, but I think there's still a lot of Toyota dealers in the Chicago region or in Chicagoland area don't have their doc fee up, which I'm like, man, I just don't know if the FTC seems like they're on the war path right now, and they're not. I'm not messing with them. So
yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't look past it, but dealers looking at your website and saying, "Hey, FTC, guess what?" Like, we've had that happen with a few dealers that we've worked with. Yeah.
With
But
tech
so
stack changeovers, you have experience coming from the vendor side and the retail side. What's a tip that we can help our dealers optimize if they're changing vendors, or if they're onboarding a new product, something like that, or something to avoid bad things that have happened to you?
yeah, I mean, the vendor question for me is always, and I have a soft spot for vendors, obviously, being on that side of it. I don't take our vendor relationships lightly. And I tell vendors when they start, I'm like, you're on our team. Like, you're not in the store, but you're an extension of who we are, or our strategy, which we try to be as nimble as we can. So we do look for vendors that kind of fit. If I pick up the phone and say, hey, we need to do this, I want a straight answer. And yeah, we can't do that, and here's why, or like, yeah, we'll get on it. We're probably looking at a 48-hour turnaround. We just changed OTT CTV companies because of that. We were running a lot of like evergreen ads, which is great in our backyard for our PMA defense, but when we got to move right now, we're low on turn rate on Tacomas, and so I'm like, hey, let's shift our strategy, right? We got to move these Tacomas. We got to end up in the green at the end of the month. What are we going to do to feed demand, right? And so we went to a vendor that fit that mold. And 2 days later, I had a video in front of me with a lease offer and a finance offer, and here's what we're going to do. So I would just say, do you have people like that in your back pocket? And I'll throw out the dealer profitability summit. The number one thing I took was that vendor phone call. And I've actually, like, we have our first one coming up here in June, and it really, and there wasn't many people who were like, oh, I don't want to do that, but there was some hesitancy, and I was like, okay, that's a little bit of a red flag for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I really, if I'm a dealer out there, and I would throw that up there just to almost gauge the reaction. Because they're like, oh, well, I don't, there's nothing, I've done those and nothing. It was like, okay, like, this is not good. This is a red flag.
What you hiding?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we were transparent. I'm like, hey, this isn't a point fingers thing. This isn't to come and be like, well, why is our search visibility down in this area that we're geoed? No, but it's really like, hey, let's all work together for the common goal to move as much metal as possible to get people in our service department, right? And so I wanted people to feel comfortable, but even before I got into that, it was just you had some people sort of push back a little bit. And luckily though, most of our vendors aren't like that. And I think it's because once again, just we want to look for the people who we have the best relationships with. So
right. They're like, are you looking for redundancies? Do these people compete with us? Are they looking to figure out a way to, make their budget more lean, versus here's an opportunity for us all who are by relationship advocates for what's good for the dealership and what's good for you and what makes you look good in front of your general managers and the leadership team. But most importantly, it's like, what are the headwinds at the store? And now you have your cast of a few vendors or several vendors on the call where you can talk about your Tundras. And people can start talking about ways that they can help tap into, hey, we have a database of people driving pickup trucks that are over 5 years old that are bigger. Let's talk about the fuel efficiency. Let's talk about the features of and start pushing the conversation towards not a vendor call talking about the cost per click and the click-through rates, but talking about like the real impactful things happening at the dealership. And it's still, we still have time left this month to make some tweaks to do a push and a manager special. Is anybody on board with that? Okay, let's start getting that conversation rolling versus these kind of siloed conversations about digital metrics. But, that's where real creativity starts getting fused back into marketing versus it just being so analytics driven, which I find it really enjoyable to have like a call with a handful of vendors on the same call with the dealer to pull out from the dealer, like, what are the problems? What are the tailwinds? What are the headwinds? And what can we all do from our desks to help? And if you can't do anything, it's okay. But it's like, let's have that open conversation of here's a few things that worked well with similar situations. So it's cool.
From an efficiency standpoint, establishing your focus, like to your point, Andrew, if we're working on acquisition and say your paid search is like pushing people to your site, you can talk to your organic or SEO. Like if you have everyone on the same conversation rowing in the same direction, you can make a larger splash. If they know, okay, so-and-so is going to be flooding the site with this, I'm going to remarket them with this message. And we're all trying to get, trades or whatever your focus is for the month. And it's for Joe's sake, he doesn't have to have 12 meetings over the span of the first 2 weeks of the month when promos drop or whatever. He can have one conversation where everyone's dialed in. We all go off to our separate little caves and start building your stuff for you or whatever. It's very efficient.
Yeah, I think landing pages, I think that's where we're focusing on right now. I think we could be better, and that vendor call I think is going to really clean up a lot because it's going to like the organic side is going to understand, I think, paid a little bit better instead of me just trying to pull a bunch of levers with each person. It's like, well, why don't we just and I'm sitting there at the dealer profitability summit, like God, I am stupid. Like, why don't I just get everyone on a call? Like, instead of me trying to be like, back there, like middlemaning all of this. And I'm like, no, let's throw everyone. And some people have data that some people don't have too. Like, oh, I didn't know that actually Tacomas are selling, in this area. And so I think that's the other thing too with vendors is like lean on their data, right? To target as granularly as you can. I just said don't feed data, but I think a lot of dealers try to create data. Someone, I think it was the used car director walked in one day. He's like, I just drove by a Toyota store and they got a sign outside, $5,000 off Tundras. Like, I'm like, I love that. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, if that's their marketing strategy, I'm like, we're great. I go, their marketing strategies, they hope someone drives by the dealership and says, I want to buy a Tundra. And I just happen to see this sign. Now I'm not saying that's all they're doing, but that's sort of the thinking that we're still trying to overcome in this business. Right. So, Yeah.
To your point, it's not a common sense thing to have all of your vendors on a call. You've been doing this since 2009. Dealers, it's just what we've always done. We've just always had 19 meetings. We've just always had, or one-stop shop vendors that I can't get on the phone when I call them for an update.
Yeah, and then you have 19 different dashboards that you got to look at, and that's another thing we're trying to consolidate right now is like essentially all of our data into a one-stop shop. So I'm building that out right now for vendors too, though. Really, so we can pull, because what Toyota does well is their data, and that they provide dealers. So we can pull lost leads report if they went and bought a Toyota at another store, right? So I put a map together, I put a zip code analysis. So my thought is for a vendor, if it's, once again, like you're taking our first party data and saying, okay, how do we target the best? And then everyone could have access to that, right? And they can see like, oh, well, we have a Camry problem in, Elk Grove Village, which is, 15 minutes north of us, but still in our PMA. And we lost 4 sales to this dealer. Like, what are they doing? What do we need to do to play defense to capture those sales? So
Yeah.
I'm trying to create a one-stop shop for everybody, but we'll see how that goes.
Can you bring that up in front of everybody on the call to show them, hey, here's some trends that I'm seeing from my desk that you guys might not be aware of?
Yeah.
And then let them say, we can do zip code targeting. We can do whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I want it to be valuable. My goals, I sat down with the GSM because I was like, what do you want out of this? Right. And the initial dashboard is supposed to be more in-house, of like where we're at for that month compared to the region, and then our PMA defense for the year, our spend analysis. I have a 5-pillar marketing dashboard I'm building, so we're not just looking at like, it's because sometimes it's like, yeah, we're selling cars, but are we doing a great job? Maybe not. And sometimes we feel like we're not selling cars, but we actually are doing a great job, right? It doesn't boil down to one single metric, right? So I'm trying to build that out, but I'm trying to make it so GM can use it, GSM can use it, I can use it, and then our vendors can use it. So I'm trying to give it.
Is this Jarvis?
Oh,
or is that something else? Okay.
Jarvis was Fred, who did I tell about this?
I don't remember. It popped up though.
I think, yeah, Jarvis was a side project that my wife axed immediately. And she's like, you're going too deep in this rabbit hole. You have to stop. It's like an orb on a browser, and it says like, hello, Mr. Joseph, like, what can we do today? And I'm like, scrape the internet, and it's based off of obviously Jarvis from Marvel, but
yeah,
she's like, this is too much, you got to stop, like, this is insane. So I'm like,
sounds like you're using Claude.
I use Claude to code terminal that runs Jarvis in the browser. Yeah.
Are you using that with a dealership to help aggregate all the data and try to make a consolidated platform to look at?
Yeah, it goes back to the efficiency, comment from earlier, and that's really just it can pull. We use different like API feeds to pull in GA, to pull in Search Console, to pull in AdWords data, right? And so it's easier for me to go and say, hey, pull this up, and then look at it. I mean, it'll give you recommendations, which I will ask for, just because I'm like, maybe it sees something that I don't, even though I do live in a world of fear of like, they're going to wake up and just fire Joe one day. I still am at the point where I'm like proud enough to say, okay, what do you see? Right. And so I want all eyes from all sources, even the robots, to say, well, here's what we're seeing. And I'm like, okay, I agree or I disagree. So, but it has
crazy, like,
yeah, sorry.
How many people do you have a team of people on your marketing team internally?
Just me.
So are you doing much of like the fulfillment yourself?
Yeah, I mean, define fulfillment for me.
I don't know. Are you jumping into AdWords and tinkering with it and negative keywords and
No,
VLA?
no, but because our our AdWords companies is so for Toyota, for example, it's very OEM. Like they have a chokehold on that one, and so I won't get too deep into those details, but they're not going to let you because of compliancy, especially in Chicago. I'll just put it that way. It could become the wild, wild west if you let dealers do that, but we do get pretty granular. That is one thing from Shift I've learned is like most dealers, there's a lot of money there that goes into an AdWords spend, and it's sort of like set it and forget it, and I can't do that. I can't live in that world. So I do try to drill down into like, okay, campaigns and then keyword, I'm looking at KPIs inside the campaign for those individual keywords. I try to be as granular as I can, but am I actually going in and manipulating spend? No, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just oversight of the vendors, which is a great use of like, hey, I can be able to look at Google Analytics and see if something is off and do the basics to be able to oversee it, but then get trust, get creative ideas from them. Is there anything else that you feel like since you've started working on how long have you been at the dealership side now?
2 years back to the dealership side, 2 years next month.
Yes, back to the dealership side.
Yeah.
And it comes a long way to have credibility selling cars. I feel like that puts you in a different category.
Yeah, I think
to apply.
I think that when you're talking to people on the floor and you want them to buy into what you're doing, it's good to have that I know what you're going through story, right? And here's how I feel it'll help you be better, right? So I think it does build that trust. And same thing from a Shift standpoint when dealers are like, okay, this person understands my world. They understand my language, how I think, what I go through on a daily basis. There's some credibility. It was easier to break, to build the trust a lot quicker than someone maybe who's trying to walk in and has a different background.
Do you think is there something that like the general managers are asking of you or the leadership team is asking of you that you weren't expecting?
I think the biggest difficulty in this sort of role is like you're expected to know everything about everything. It's tough because being a one person, social media, AdWords, organic, and now we're throwing in AI, AIO, AEO, GEO. That's on people's radars, right? And I'm getting more into the fixed ops side. I'm trying to look at it from a business standpoint, but I really had to tell myself it's okay if they ask you a question and you don't know. I think when you're someone that's in a role like me, you're expected to know, like I said, everything about everything. And I think people just need to know that sometimes that just isn't going to be the case. It's changing. You guys know I'm preaching to the choir. It's changing so rapidly, right? Where selling cars when you're on the floor. I mean, you want to hone your skills, right? But you're not trying to keep up with like Google algorithm updates, right? And why did our search visibility drop 2% in our backyard? Oh, because of this. Okay, well, what do we need to do, right? There's so much changing landscape in automotive marketing right now, that it's almost like you're just fully in school all the time. So
Totally, which is good because without it, we wouldn't be in high demand. If it was the same as it was 25 years ago.
Do the sales guys ever come at you and try to give you suggestions on what you're doing wrong and what you need to improve? Not that a salesperson would ever do that, but
I mean, yeah, right. Yeah. No, never would they? No, I think so. What I do is really, I'll go in a Saturday meeting, and when I'm there, and I'll be like, let me throw out some buzzwords that no one knows what I'm talking about, so it just really scares them away to be like, I'm not talking about this. this guy. So it's a real smoke and mirrors approach to
Okay.
just getting people away.
KPIs.
Yeah. Like, well, generative engine optimization, and it's like, oh, I don't know what this guy's talking about. He's like a wizard back there. But it's they will come in and give me it is funny though, because they'll give me like a third party strategy from like 2017 that worked, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll think about that. Like, I'm nice about it, but I'm like, yeah, that was 9 years ago or whatever. That's not the lowering your car $1 is not gonna work anymore. So, but yeah,
They all know that you came from the trenches too, though, so they have respect for your background.
Didn't know it off the bat. Should have probably handed out a resume, but yeah, it was because they're like, well, you don't understand about how it's like that. I'm like, whoa, so.
I know more than you, buddy.
I was like, guys, yeah, I was like, you sold cars? Oh my gosh. And then you're like, yeah, I sold cars. Like, have you tried to sell Mazdas in 09 and 10? Like, it really builds character. But yeah, I mean, but I do tell people, I'm like, listen, I don't care where the idea comes from. If it's a good idea, let's run with it. I'm open to everything. We had at BMW, we had it was one of our delivery, they call them geniuses. Young girl, like 22, she's like, hey, this button, it's kind of confusing. I think if you change it to this, I would understand it better. And I'm like, let's run with it. And it improved. Sometimes the best ideas come from the people that haven't been in this business, because they're just normal people that shop like everyone else. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies, to be honest with you, because we never really had to buy a car. I didn't have to go. I maybe once when I lived in Vegas, didn't really know anyone out there. Right. But I still kind of knew how to do things. I never really had to walk in and be just a customer and the typical research that goes towards that. So.
You weren't acquired.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I will say the thing we haven't talked about that is a huge asset to us is our multi-click, our attribution models, and I still think there's a lot of dealers out there talking last click. I can't wrap my head around this. I don't understand it, but I guess, that's the one thing that was still eye-opening for me, was to look at click paths for people who bought cars. And you have
do you use a vendor, or are you doing that in-house?
We use Clarivoy. They've been great. It was very eye-opening. I think a lot of people who are anti third parties don't like Clarivoy, or people like Clarivoy, or what the data they provide, because now you have physical, like, here you go. Here's why they're still important. They still have a space. I think it's 70% of people who bought cars from our Toyota store started on a marketplace. I'm not saying we got to be everywhere. We only run with two marketplaces, but they still have a spot with us. I'm not looking to cut anything. So that's always the big discussion. But as someone,
controversial.
Yeah, it's I get it. I mean, once again, and that's changing. I think Google really wants, for vehicle ads, they want to serve up dealers. They really want to serve up dealers. And I got this from someone who went out there and kind of spoke with Google, and they were like, we want to serve up dealer cars instead of third party cars, which will probably hurt their traffic. Right. So I'm interested to see what happens moving forward with that. But I still think if I'm starting off upper funnel, mid funnel, and I just want to look at who's got the cars, I'm going to a marketplace, right? And I'm drilling down that way. There's a lot of touch points in marketplaces. I mean, a lot of touch points if you look at click paths, and it's really it's eye opening, and I think Clarivoy cuts it off at 250 clicks per per unit sold.
Person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a lot of those where it's like 250, 250, 250. And then sometimes you'll sprinkle in your 2 and you're like, okay, well, I'm like, that person's rolling the dice, but
Maniac.
like I want to talk to them. And they don't give you that person's information for obviously for identity reasons, but you're like, I gotta talk to that person. I'm like, man, what were they doing?
Yeah. Is
One
that just
phone
one of the
call.
Rockefellers who can just be like, I'll die that one?
Yeah. It was your
Yeah.
sales manager. He walked by and he saw $5,000 off a Tundra and he was like, let's do it.
It probably
I'm in.
was. Yeah, it probably was our finance manager who just bought a Camry and like, yeah, whatever. So, but that to me is like, I don't want to say insider trading. That's probably not the words I want to use, but
It's
but
all
man,
data. It's
it's
informing
so
you.
good. It's such good data. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that
Yeah.
at Shift.
And
Yeah.
you can watch the path go to like, okay, they went to Car Gurus, True Car, and they're like, well, we're not even on Car Gurus. It's like, okay, that's how they ended. Yeah, our pixel fired when they went to these different spots. And the last thing they did is click Google Maps to our location. Let's give all the credit to Google Maps.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, you'd still walk in there when I was with Shift and people would be like, well, I think I'm going to cut this vendor, this third party. And you're like, well, why? Oh, well, we're not really closing any deals. I'm like, okay, well, let's work backwards. Let's look at your process. I'm like, is it fair to that third party vendor that your average response time is 22 minutes? I'm like, is it their fault or there's a process issue? How can you correctly make a decision on that vendor if you're not giving them a fair assessment with your process, right? So, I mean, that to me is always the big question. But once again, I've heard people who are a lot smarter than me who look at groups who are like, I wanted to cut third parties, and then I looked at attribution data and I'm like, oh man, we can't do it.
I shouldn't have looked at that data.
Yeah, like I thought I was gonna be a hero and save us like 125 G's a month, but we can't do it. So it's always sort of funny to me. But it does also confirm on the back end, because we do see on the, we look at it more of like a U shape in terms of how we weight that. We do see a lot of people, website tools. So it's confirming what we're doing on site also, not just how are people beginning their shopping. So it just, like I said, it's just great data. Anyone who's looking, who doesn't have it, number one thing I'd recommend.
And back to the CDP for just a second. I don't want to sound like a CDP hater at all, because that's like by far the most, the highest return on any campaigns we could run is to like the audience of customers who know about the dealership because they've either at least filled out a lead form before or they've bought from us in the past. So now we're not introducing who the dealership is and our value. They know who we are. Let's nurture them for referrals and services, and especially trade in, trade up, key for key stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What are you finding with how long have you been using the CDP with Full Path since you started?
A little over a year.
And you're finding you're finding more that you can do and it's easier to execute than the DMS.
Yes, because we're just pulling in more data. I mean, the DMS isn't pulling in CRM data, right? The DMS isn't pulling in like
data.
It's not pulling in like OEM offers, right? That might fit this customer. It's not pulling in inventory to match up to this customer will fit this, right? It's all just kind of plugging in those puzzle pieces. I think you're missing it. You're missing a lot. The DMS, obviously we're pulling that into the CDP anyway, but
right.
What is let me turn the tables a little bit here. What is your thought on a CDP? Because I am interested to get your opinion on the CDP.
Are you asking me or Andrew or both?
Both.
Yeah, no, I'm finding it takes a lot of times, and I think vendors are getting better at this because it's tough to be a software company and then start to be like, okay, you guys aren't using this to its full capacity. Can we, activate ads on this data for you? Now, all of a sudden, they slide down the path of becoming an ad agency on accident. And they're like, we're actually a software. You're supposed to be able to do this. So, in my observation, it takes a good partner vendor to be able to tap into that data, or especially, like, way more important than that is to have somebody responsible for it inside the dealership. You need a Joe Lyons sitting there that's
Appreciate you.
able to make sense of it and activate things and come up with once a week or once a month, hey, let's test out this, and this, email, SMS, phone calls, social media, OTT, whatever, where you can start to take that data and activate on it. Because just data sitting there, that's, once you sign up for the CDP, it's not just like you check the box. It's now you got to do something with it.
Right.
Same. I, feel
I
the
like it
same.
because we can just plug that right into social media platforms and target all those audiences.
FullPath specifically has offered to, if we get approval from the dealer, they'll let us in. So we have access. We can go crazy and, pull all different kinds of sets, things that the GM might not necessarily think of. Let me pull this specific segment of people and talk to them in this way to try to sell this type of unit or something like that. Something that we think about all the time. We're trying to get the creative juices flowing and come up with strategy. And now we have access to something that can kind of help us connect the dots. It's pretty
Right.
cool.
And I think it's really helping to pierce like something that we've been pretty slow to really do a good job of as dealerships, and that's to really own our own customer base. And let's start there, and then let's try to scrape in, because we're constantly like, okay, new month, new people, new customers, new everything. But like, for somebody to look at it a little bit more long term, because we're such a month-to-month industry, whether it's looking at it quarterly or just for the upcoming year and years, of what can we do to keep our customers, to have them come back, and just start with them and be able to advertise, make sure that once they purchase, maybe we're not running ads to them as now, maybe they're in a new audience of introducing the service manager, the service department, the service contract that came with the purchase of your vehicle, and reminding them about why they need to come back into our store. And I think it's doing a good job of us as an industry starting to really care about the lifetime value of a customer versus the transaction and hopefully service. But like, okay, here's our fixed absorption rate. What can we do to improve it? And start to measure that as a metric that our store cares about.
You said that you're expanding into fixed ops a little bit, Joe. What kind of stuff are you looking at?
We're chasing we're looking at retention right now. That's our big metric. We want to win President's Award bad. There's essentially boils down to two things with Toyota. It's sales efficiency and essentially service retention. It's not what they call it, but it's service retention. So we're looking at that, and we're taking. I think the vendors have been key in that. I think they've been open about the what's working out there, and we've brought a lot of that stuff in. But we're also just trying to get everything in-house honed in. So when people do pull through those doors, because when you have someone that hasn't been here in a year and you get them back in, right, you really only have one more shot. So it's tough. I always said service. I think the service writers, to me, that's one of the hardest jobs in the dealership. It's so difficult. That and finance. I think finance, those are the two chairs that I think are the hardest jobs in the dealership. But
it sounds like they involve you in operations a little bit, with like for fixed, for example. I know you're working on the digital side to get them those tee-ups and appointments booked, but did you have any involvement with changing the opportunity or improving CSI? Or
I think my involvement is this working? Like, let's go to Joe. So they signed up for an OEM like AdWords campaign, and and all of a sudden we have like a platform service director, and he's like, hey, is this working? And I'm like, well, I was like, I don't have any data, so I don't know. so it's kind of funny. You're like, well, I need this, and this, and this, and so but yeah, I think that's where I come in is sort of like we're looking at efficiency standpoint right now from our parts department. We have a really, really strong online, but when you have a strong online, it creates inefficiency because of data entry. So we're trying to look at, how do we maybe involve AI, but then you get into like, privacy and all that. And that's just, man, we're skirting a line here that I don't know if I want to be at, but those are still the things we want to look at to be able to increase. At the end of the day, like I've really got into the business aspect, being back into it, and the number side, and looking at like, what is our fixed absorption? What is our, like, what is our net, right? How can we increase these numbers? And even though it's not really my job, I want to start to like have that mindset of like, how can I affect that? Because at the end of the day, the people that are signing checks, that's what they're looking at. So
yeah. And the people signing the checks, it's like, do you guys care about the fixed absorption rate?
Right.
Should I? I think I should. Here's why. Like, here's how it can impact our bottom line and insulate us from any weird chip shortages and whatever the hell can come across our inventory.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, if you could design an ideal vendor partner for McGrath, what do they do brilliantly? What do they not do?
I'm always staying away from it sounds once again elementary, but I'm staying away from the cookie cutters. I'm going after the people that want to learn about our store. Points if you're local, just to be, I love face-to-face. Points if you fly your people out to come visit us, even if it's like once or twice a year. I want to work with someone who encourages that. But really someone who understands our brand as McGrath Elmhurst Toyota, who understands our market. Chicago is just a different animal. I'm a little snobby when it comes to Chicago. I love Chicago. I love the competitiveness of it. We have stores all around us with people who are really, really sharp. So it's like, you don't get any days off, right? And we need vendors that understand that and understand like why I call so much, and I'm not trying to be annoying. I'm not trying to be demanding. I'm just trying to be nimble. Right. And, that's where I start. And and if you don't take the time to do that, or you don't ask the right questions in the initial assessment phase about us, I'm kind of like, I'm a little wary about this, that I'm going to get the same strategy as like the person in, wherever. I'm not going to throw out a town. Yeah. but I'm not here to knock Des Moines, but, but yeah, I mean, it's just a whole different animal. So
I'm taking notes. We shouldn't be cookie cutter. Because I thought, like, if we were more cookie cutter, we can maybe scale and service more dealers. But it's like,
it sounds kind of like, I always feel bad saying it, but at the same time, how many people still use a vendor that also has the person down the street and it's the same template? You know what I mean? Oh, I'm using so-and-so that has a bunch of stores around me. There's no personalization there.
Yeah. And I think it's good from a vendor's perspective, not even just in the selling of the product or services into the dealership, but just in servicing the dealership over time, of asking the right questions to be able to figure out the opportunities, the resources the dealership has, the BD, do they have a BDC? Are they twiddling their thumbs, but good, and they need a higher volume of leads? Or, for the vendor to get a good perspective to where the day that they start, they should have a really good foot forward on the right kind of strategy versus here's our templated one. And then based on performance, we'll tune the knobs but it's like, okay, here's what this store needs. Here's the resources they have. Here's what we're going to deploy. Here's what we're keeping in the back pocket and, for maybe next month or the next month, but here's like the initial things that are going to be like the low hanging fruit that this dealership needs to see. And it's not cookie cutter traffic.
And what is the person that you're talking to inside the store? What makes them say this is successful or this is unsuccessful instead of just blanketed data, right? Because you'll have, especially in the paid side, you'll have the people who tune the gears to, we're going after VDP views because then we can show a low cost per click. But then I look at the data, the attribution data, not a lot of people clicking on paid ads, right, that actually convert into a sale. That's what makes me tick. I'll pay more for that click if it means that customer is more likely to call or fill out a form, or honestly, we can just attribute it to a sale, right? That's just me, but I'm not everybody. And so I think learning the personality of who you're talking to at the dealership that makes those decisions, that's also key. I don't think a lot of people ask those questions either.
Yeah, and it's a tough education setup too. It's like, okay, it's great to get the clicks, but 10% of people actually click ads. Maybe a little bit lower for BMW. Maybe a little lower for Toyota. So it's like, can we have a strategy in place for everybody that we're going to be able to have attribution through Clarivoy and these channels? But at the same time, get those clicks, get those leads, get those fundamental things, get those credit applications and trade-in appraisals on the website, and be able to measure and try to stimulate those, but at the same time, be able to impact people through advertising where we're not going to be able to have that like immediate engagement. It's not easy.
No, it's very difficult, which is what I love about it. Just every day, it's like, it's digital chess, right? And it's just, how am I going to move my pieces today?
Yeah.
So,
but that's why it's cool. That's why everybody needs to have somebody almost as good as Joe Lyons if you can find them and keep them.
I heard he was about to get fired, so maybe.
Yeah,
he's trying.
I'm like, I'm borderline. The funny part is, like, I'll say this, with the people that are above me, they're all very supportive, and they all consistently tell me like we really appreciate what you do. Like, we'd be, I don't want to say lost, but they're just like, hey, like we can't do this and we need you. So they're so supportive. And yet I just wake up every day and I'm like, they're just gonna fire me. So I'm like, even though they shower me with compliments, I'm still like, don't buy into it.
But it's a cool, like,
probably been at stores that didn't have a Joe Lyons, and they know what that's like.
It's tough.
It's a cool lens to have from your role where you are right now, to have sold cars, to have sold to dealerships, to have kind of represented the manufacturer side and the dealer relationship, which is super important to be able to unlock co-op and compliance and that stuff, to now being in your desk. Like, what was the most formative one of those experiences you think that helped mold you?
I think what got me fired up to start looking back to the dealership, I don't think I can narrow it down to one, but it was just a collective of the reality of our industry and just how I was like, oh, I think I can give us a competitive advantage because I understand what people aren't looking at, what they aren't doing in their store, right? And then it was just finding once again, the person who was going to nurture that. And I had meetings with McGrath. They had bought the store, the Toyota and BMW store, in March of 23, I want to say. And then we launched SmartPath, which is the digital retailing tool from Toyota. And I came in and helped with that. And I started to meet with Greg and, hey, here's what I would do on the website. Okay, let's change it. And I saw sort of the forward thinking that he has. Right. And I just, the guy, he's such a great leader. And the McGraths are great. I've heard great things about them when I was researching, and they're great leaders. Now that I've had an opportunity to experience that. So the that to me was the most eye-opening, was being with Shift and just sort of traveling around to 100. There's 112 stores in the Chicago region, 113 stores in the Chicago region, and just kind of seeing how everybody operated. And most of them, going back to we give a lot of money to the TDA, which then we'll spend it on AdWords, and it's just like, here you go, and you'd have dealers that are buying the same keywords, and you're like, you're buying your name twice, just so you know. I'm like, you're just bidding against yourself. Oh, we are? Yeah. I'm like,
which one's winning?
so you should cut that spend by about $4,000. So it just, you're like, ugh. And I'm not saying I'm better than anyone, but I think it sort of got, like, you guys, the creative juices started flowing, and like, what would I do? And just give me a BDC team. What that was the number one thing, honestly, even from a marketing, it was the process in store that was eye opening. And it was just, and I just, our foundation is speed. It's like, someone texts a question, they get an answer. Someone's on lunch, I don't care. You jump in and you respond to that question. Like, I don't want them waiting an hour for that person to get back. Right. It's all built on speed.
Same.
Because, yeah. I mean, it has to be, going back to Chicago. I mean, we're surrounded, we're surrounded by dealers. And if we're not doing it, then if we're not getting back to them right away, then someone else is. And I also would say, like, we, as the BDC, I'm like, you understand, I'm like, we set the tone for the in-store experience. If we fumble digital, they're going to be like, man, well, do I want to walk in and spend this kind of money? Am I going to trust these people? They can't even answer a text message, right. They can't answer an email, right. They can't get back to me within a timely manner. What's it going to be like when I walk in the store? Right. And so I think it's from the digital aspect, it's so important to be on top of your game. Whatever you do, BDC, floor, hybrid, whatever you do.
If there's any advice you could have to, like, a dealer that's listening right now, or marketing director at a dealership, or general managers, like, what's one thing that they can do to get on top of their digital game this week?
Well, I think, I would look at, I would start with just your data, right? And I would start to look at, do we have clean data coming in, right? Now, let's say you don't have a digital marketing mind. I would start with your vendors and say, hey, are we tagged correctly, right? Is GA4 set up correctly? And they'll help. Like, they really will. Do I have Search Console set up, right? I'm starting with clean data. And then I'm looking at the lowest funnel, my business profile, right? Are my categories right? Because that's a major signal, right? Are my all my customer questions answered? What's my review? How many reviews do I have coming in? At what rate? Average per month. Because now I'm looking at down the line, AI, that's a big signal. I'm preparing for that. And then I'm looking at the user friendliness of my website. Is it easy to get around? Do I have a bunch of pop-ups, right? Is the path natural? Right? We still see a lot of confirm availability form fills, but it's actually coming from our smart path, like microsite, which I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I took it off our website because I'm like, the natural path is, here's the car. Let me play around let me personalize my payment. Okay. I think this looks good. Is the car there? Right. It's just the natural path. Does your website follow the natural path? Is it easy to do that? And that's sort of where I'm starting.
Yeah.
Low hanging fruit.
I love that. That is great advice. I'm always like, I always think, just as marketers too, we have these big, beautiful computer screens, and dealers have big, beautiful computer screens that they're like looking at creative, and especially their website on this big monitor, where I'm like, well, looks like 91% of your traffic's on mobile. Let's walk through it on your phone. Like,
I was going to say that. And just remember that, and 90, to your point, I would say 90 to 92%, just our numbers, our conversions on our website come from mobile.
That's impressive.
So, I'm like, I've changed it a little bit, so hopefully we have some more chats coming in on desktop. But yeah, I mean, 75%, 80% of our traffic's mobile, 92% of our, but how do people in the store look at our website? They look at it on a desktop, right? So and I'm always reminding, oh, this doesn't look, remember it's built for mobile. Remember it's built for mobile. Oh, okay, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, okay. So just start there if you're at the top. Go on your phone.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Well, Joe Lyons, Sheila Pogue, it was a treat to talk with you both. And are you active on social medias or want people to follow and like and subscribe to your stuff?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there, or just my information's on our site. You're more than welcome to reach out if anyone wants to see the dashboards we're building or whatever. Be more than happy to share. I love geeking out on that stuff. So reach out anytime.
And thanks again for coming to Austin. I'll have to hit you up next time I'm in Chicago. We have nonstop flights all the time.
Nice. Well, thank you. Appreciate you guys having me on. It was a blast.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.